Lu Pu perishes at the White Gate Tower. As was stated before, Cao Shun and Chang Liu together went to smite Kuan Yu, while Lu Pu attacked the younger brother's camp. Both brothers went out to give battle, while Liu Pei's force was held in reserve. Lu Pu attacked from the rear and the brothers were forced to flee. Liu Pei with a few score horsemen rushed back to Peicairn. As he approached the gate with Lu Pu pressing him close, he shouted to the soldiers on the wall to lower the drawbridge. Lu Pu was so close behind that the archers on the wall feared to shoot, lest they should wound their lord, and so Lu Pu got into the gate. The gate guards could not force him back, so they scattered in all directions. Lu Pu led his force into the city. Liu Yuantair saw the position was too desperate for him to reach his residence, and he must abandon all his family. So he hastened through the city and left by the west gate out, at which he and his scanty following fled for very life. When Lu Pu reached the residence, he was met by Mai Chu, who said, "The hero does not destroy a man's wife. Your rival for the empire is TsʻAo, and my master, always mindful of the good turn you did him at your gate, would not be ungrateful. But he could not help going to TsʻAo, and I think you will pity him." Lu Pu replied, "We two are old friends. How could I bear to harm his wife and children?" Whereupon he sent the family to HsiapʻEi with Mai Chu to take care of them. Next Lu led his army into Shantung to Yanchu, leaving Cao Shun and Chang Liu to guard HsiapʻEi. During these troubles Sun Xiaqin had also fled out of the city, and the two brothers, each with a handful of men, had got away to the hills. As Liu Pei with his few horsemen was making the best of their way from the scene of his defeat, he heard someone coming up behind him. When he got closer, the person proved to be Sun Xiaqin. "Alas, I know not the fate of my brothers, whether they be alive or dead, and my wife and children are lost to me. What can I do?" said Liu Pei. Sun replied, "I see nothing better than getting away to TsʻAo, whence we may be able to plan our future moves." Liu Pei had no better plan to propose, and the two men directed their way to HsiapʻEi, choosing byroads rather than highways. When their small supplies ran out, they entered a village to beg. But when the people of any place heard that Liu of Yuchu was the man who needed help, they vied with each other in offering all that was required. One day they sought shelter at a house whence a youth came out and made a low obeisance. They asked his name, and he gave it as Liu An, of a well-known family of hunters. Hearing who the visitor was, the hunter wished to lay before him a dish of game, but though he sought for a long time, nothing could be found for the table. So he came home, killed his wife, and prepared a portion for his guest. While eating, Liu Pei asked what flesh it was, and the hunter told him, "Wolf." Yuantair knew no better and ate his fill. Next day at daylight, just as he was leaving, he went to the stables in the rear to get his horse, and passing through the kitchen, he saw the dead body of a woman lying on the table. The flesh of one arm had been cut away. Quite startled, he asked what this meant, and then he knew what he had eaten the night before. He was deeply affected at this proof of his host's regard, and the tears rained down as he mounted his steed at the gate. "I wish I could go with you," said Liu An, "but as my mother still lives, I cannot go so far from home." Liu Pei thanked him and went his way. The party took the road by Liancheng, and as they were going out, they saw not far off a thick cloud of dust. When the troop came nearer, they found they were men of TsʻAo's army, and with them they traveled to the main camp, where they found TsʻAo himself. He wept at the sad story of Liu's distress, the loss of the city, his brothers and wife and children. When he told him of the hunter who had sacrificed his wife to feed them, TsʻAo sent the hunter a present of 100 ounces of silver as a reward. 11. The march then was continued to HsiapʻEi, where HsiapʻEi Yuan welcomed them. They heard that his brother was still ill from the wound he had received in the eye. TsʻAo went to the sick man's bedside to see him and had him removed to HsiapʻEi for skilled treatment. Presently scouts, sent out particularly for tidings of Luo, returned saying that he had allied himself with the bandits in the east and they were attacking Yenshu. At this, TsʻAo dispatched TsʻAo Jern with 3 companies to take Piikern, while he, in conjunction with Liu Pei, moved against Luo. They went east. As they neared Artemisia Pass, HsiapʻEi Quan, they met the Taoian brigands with 3 legions barring their road. However, they were easily beaten back and were chased right up to the pass. The scouts told Luo, who was then in HsiapʻEi, whither he had gone to start an expedition to save HsiapʻEi. He left the protection of his city to HsiapʻEi and set out with HsiapʻEi. As this latter was starting, HsiapʻEi said to him, "Remember the words of TsʻAo, that the business of the East is in our hands. Now is our moment, for Luo is about to suffer defeat. Father, your son can look after the outside, but when he returns beaten you must arrange with my Chu to keep him out of the city." "I shall find a means of escape," said Tang. "His family is here and he has many friends. How about them? I also have a scheme to settle them." Then he went to see Luo, to whom he said, "HsiapʻEi is surrounded and this city will be fiercely attacked. We ought to provide for possible retreat, and I advise storing grain and money in HsiapʻEi. We could retreat there if the day went adversely. Why not see about this in good time?" "Your words are indeed wise. I will also send my wife and little ones thither," said Lu. The family left under escort, and with them was sent much grain and silver. And then the soldiers marched to the relief of the pass. About halfway there HsiapʻEi said, "Let me go first to reconnoiter so that you, my lord, may advance with confidence." Thus HsiapʻEi parted company with his chief and preceded him to the pass, where he was received by HsiapʻEi. He said, "The Marquis greatly wonders why you do not advance. He is going to inquire into it." "The enemy is in great force and we cannot be too careful," said Kung. "We are holding the pass, and you should persuade our master to take steps to guard Piikern." HsiapʻEi muttered to himself and said no more. That evening he went up to the heights from which he could see TsʻAo's army, which was quite close to the pass. Then he wrote 3 notes, tied them to arrows and shot them into TsʻAo's camp. Next day he left and hastened back to Luo. "Those bandits are about to give up the pass to the enemy, but I have left HsiapʻEi to hold it. You had better make an attack tonight and hold him." "Had it not been for you the pass would have been lost," said Lu. Then he sent HsiapʻEi back to arrange a signal with HsiapʻEi for simultaneous action. So Tang returned to Kung, to whom he said, "TsʻAo's men have found a secret way through the pass, and I fear HsiapʻEi is already lost. You ought to go back at once." At this the pass was abandoned, and Kung began to retreat. Then the prearranged signal was given. Luo advanced in the darkness to the relief of the pass. Presently he met HsiapʻEi's men, and as neither recognized the other in the darkness, a fierce battle ensued. Nor was the trick discovered till daylight came. While these things were going on, TsʻAo had noted the signal and advanced as fast as possible. The bandits, who alone remained to hold the pass, were easily driven out and scattered in all directions. When daylight came and the trick was discovered, Luo and HsiapʻEi set off together for HsiapʻEi. But when they arrived and summoned the gate, instead of opening the doors, the men on the wall saluted them with a thick flight of arrows. At the same time my Chu appeared on the defense tower and shouted, "You stole our master's city, and now we are going to give it back to him. You will not enter here again." "Where is HsiapʻEi?" cried Luo angrily. "We have slain him," was the reply. "Where is that son of his?" said Pu, turning to Chien Kung. "Do you still hold to your delusion, General, that you ask where this specious rogue is?" Lu Pu bade them search through all the ranks, but he was not to be found. Then they decided to go to HsiapʻEi. But ere they had got halfway, there suddenly appeared the troops under the command of Cao Shun and Chang Liao. They said Chien Tang had come to them, saying their lord was surrounded, and wanted help, so they had come at once. "Another trick of that false rogue," said Lu Pu. "Surely he shall die for this." They went with all speed to the city, only to see as they drew near the ensigns of the enemy displayed all along the walls, for the city had been taken by TsʻAo. While Lu Pu stood at the foot of the rampart reviling the traitor Chien Tang, Tang himself appeared on the wall and, pointing to Lu Pu, cried, "Did you think that I, a minister of the dynasty, would serve a rebel like you?" Lu Pu in his wrath was about to make a desperate attack, but suddenly a great noise was heard, and an army came up behind him. It was led by no other than Chang Fei. Cao Shun went to engage him, but he had no chance of success. Lu Pu then joined in the fray. Then another army appeared, and the leader this time was TsʻAo himself, and his army rushed to the attack. Seeing that he had no hope of victory, Lu Pu went away toward the east, with TsʻAo in pursuit. His army marched till they were worn out. Then appeared a new force under Kuan Yu. Holding his sword ready to strike, he called out, "Do not flee, O Lu Pu, Kuan Yu is waiting for you." Lu Pu joined battle. He was flurried and scarce knew what was happening. And soon Chang Fei came up once more. By desperate efforts, Lu Pu and his men cut their way through the press and got free. After this, they started for HsiapʻEi as fast as they could travel, and Chien helped to keep the pursuers at bay. So the two brothers Kuan Yu and Chang Fei were together again after their separation. Both shed tears of joy as they told each other what they had seen and suffered. "I was on the HsiapʻEi road when I heard of you," said Chang. "I lost no time in starting, and I had been camped in the Mangtang Hills for a long time. It is happiness to be together again." So they talked. Then they marched off together to find their elder brother and made their salutations with tears. In Yuantair's heart sadness and joy intermingled. Next they were presented to TsʻAo, and with him they went into the captured city. Mai Chu soon came with the welcome news of the safety of the family. And the two Chiens, betrayers of Lu Pu, came to present their salutations. A grand banquet was prepared for the officers, at which TsʻAo presided as host, and Chien Kui and Yuantair occupied the seats of honor. At the close of the banquet, TsʻAo paid the two Chiens the highest compliments on their success, and rewarded them with the revenues of 10 departments, beside giving the son the title of Fu Po Changchun, or General, Queller of Waves. TsʻAo was very pleased with his success, and at once began to scheme for the taking of HsiapʻEi, the sole place now left to Lu Pu, where he had taken refuge. Chien Yu said the course was inadvisable. If Lu Pu be pressed too hard, he may get clear by a desperate effort, and throw himself into the arms of our especial enemy, Yuan Shu. These two as allies would be difficult to overcome. Rather send a capable man to guard Huainan, one able to secure you against Lu Pu on one hand, and to hold Yuan Shu on the other. Moreover, the bandits are in Shantung and still our enemies. They must be watched." TsʻAo replied, "I can keep the whole of Shantung, and I will request Yuantair to take the south." "Could I dare withstand your command?" said Yuantair. So forthwith Liu Pei, leaving Mai Chu and Qin Yung at Hsuchu, went south, taking in his train his brothers and son Chien. And TsʻAo led his army to HsiapʻEi. Lu Pu felt very secure in his refuge. He had good store of grain, and he had the protection of the river, So he sat quiet, satisfied that he could maintain his defense. So he allowed TsʻAo's army to approach without molestation. You ought to attack TsʻAo's army as they come up before they have time to make camps and defenses. They will only have fatigued men to oppose to your fresh troops, and you will certainly defeat them. So said HsiapʻEi, but Lu Pu replied, I have suffered too many defeats lately to take any risk. Wait till they actually attack, and you will see them floating away on the waters. So he neglected the confidant's advice and waited till the enemy had settled into their camp. This done, the attackers advanced against the city. From the foot of the wall, TsʻAo called to Lu Pu to listen while he spoke. Lu Pu ascended to the wall where he stood. TsʻAo addressed him, saying, When I heard that your family and that of Yuan Shu were likely to be united by marriage, I sent an army against you. For Yuan was guilty of treason while you had to your credit the destruction of TsʻAo. For what reason have you sacrificed all your merits to throw in your lot with a rebel? It will be over late to regret when this city shall have fallen. But if you surrender and help me to support the ruling house, you shall not lose your rank of marquis. Lu Pu replied, If the minister will retire, we may be able to discuss the matter. But HsiapʻEi, standing near his master, began to rail at TsʻAo for a rebel, and shot an arrow that struck his plumed helmet. My oath, but I will slay you at least, cried TsʻAo, pointing his finger at HsiapʻEi. Then the attack on the walls began. They have come from far and cannot maintain this for long, said HsiapʻEi. General, go out with your horse and foot and take up a position outside, leaving me to maintain the defense with the remainder of our men. If he engages you, I will come out and strike at his rear ranks. If he attacks the city, you can come to our aid. In a few days their stores will fail and we can beat them off. This will place them between the horns. The advice seems good, said Lu Pu. He went back to his palace and prepared his weapons. As it was the depth of winter, he made his men take plenty of wadded clothing to keep them warm. His wife heard of it and came to ask whither he was going. He told her of HsiapʻEi's plan. She said, My lord, you are leaving an undamaged city, abandoning your wife and little ones and going with a paltry force. Should any untoward event happen, will your handmaid and her lord ever meet again? Lu Pu hesitated, and for 3 days made no move. Then HsiapʻEi came to see him again and said, The enemy are all round the city, and unless you go out soon you will be quite hemmed in. I am thinking it would be better to maintain a stubborn defense, said Lu. Our enemies are short of food and have sent for supplies to HsiapʻEi. These will soon arrive, and you should go out with some veterans and intercept the convoy. That loss would be a heavy blow. Lu Pu agreed and went in to tell his wife the new plan. She wept, saying, If you go, do you think those others equal to the defense of the city? Should anything go wrong, you would be very sorry. You abandoned me at HsiapʻEi, and it was only through the fortunate kindness of Hsu that I was hidden from our enemies and rejoined you. Who would have thought you would leave me again? But go your way as far as you wish, and do not mind your wife. And she wept bitterly. Lu Pu very sadly went to take leave of little Cicada, who said, You are my lord, you must not be careless and ride out alone. You need not fear. With my mighty halberd and the hare, my swift steed, who dare come near me? He went out. He met HsiapʻEi and said, That story about supplies for TsʻAo is all false, one of his many ruses. I am not going to stir. HsiapʻEi sighed. He felt all was lost. We shall die, and no man shall know our burying place, said he. Thereupon Lu Pu remained in his own quarters with his women folk, drinking freely to dissipate his sorrows. 2 of his advisers went in and proposed that he should write to the powerful Yuan Shu for help. Yuan would hardly refuse to rescue the affianced bride of his son. So he wrote and bade these two take the letter. HsiapʻEi said, "You ought to send a strong escort with us to force a way through." So Lu told off a company and 2 captains to conduct his messenger beyond the pass. They started that same night at the second watch, Chang Liao leading and Ho Ming bringing up the rear. They got out of the city, crept past Yuan Tair's camp and got beyond the danger zone. Then half the escort went on, and Chang Liao led the remainder back toward the city. At the pass he found Yun Xiachang waiting. However, at that moment Cao Shun came to his help, and they all returned and re-entered the gates. The 2 messengers presently reached Xiaochun, saw Yuan Shu, and presented the letter. "How is this?" said Shu. "Formerly he slew my messenger and repudiated the marriage. Now he sends to ask for it. It is all due to the vile plans of that monster TsʻAo. I pray you, illustrious sir, to consider it carefully," replied Su. "But if your master was not hemmed in by his enemy, and in imminent danger, he would never have thought of renewing this proposal of marriage." The messengers said, "You may decide not to help him, but the teeth are cold when the lips are gone. It will not make for your happiness and comfort." Said Shu, "Scene is unreliable. Tell him that I will send soldiers after the girl has arrived here." This was final, and the 2 messengers took leave. When the party reached Yuan Tair's camp, they decided to try to get through in the darkness, the escort remaining behind to protect their rear. They tried that very night, and the 2 messengers crept across without discovery. But the escort found themselves faced by Chang Fei. Ho Ming tried to fight, but was captured in the very first bout, and the men of his half-company were either killed or they fled. The prisoner was taken to Yuan Tair, who forwarded him to the main camp. There he told the story of the marriage and the scheme to save the city. TsʻAo was angry and ordered the execution of the prisoner at the main gate. Then he sent orders to each camp to exercise the greatest diligence, with threats of rigorous punishment of the officers of any corps that permitted any communication between the besieged and the outer world. Every soldier felt mightily afraid. Yuan Tair returned to camp and cautioned his brothers, saying, "We are in the most important place with regard to Huanan, and you must be very careful not to allow any breach of this command." Chang Fei was inclined to grumble. "We have just captured one of the enemy's leaders," said he, "and there is no word of praise or reward for us, nothing but new orders and threats. What do you make of that?" "You are wrong to complain," said Yuan Tair. "These are orders of the commander-in-chief, and what would happen were there no orders? Do not disobey them, brother." They promised obedience and withdrew. In the meantime, the messengers had got back to Lu Pu and told him what Yuan Shu had said, that if the girl came the soldiers should go. "But how can she be sent?" said Pu. "That is the difficulty. Ho Ming's capture means that TsʻAo knows the whole plan of getting help from the south. I do not see how anyone but you yourself could hope to get through the close siege." "Suppose we tried today," said Lu Pu. "This is an ill-omened day. You must not try today. Tomorrow is a very lucky day, especially in the evening, for any military action." Then Lu Pu ordered Chang Liao and Cao Shun to get ready 3 companies for the venture, and to prepare a light carriage. He would lead till they had got a couple of hundred li away. Thence they could escort the bride-elect the remainder of the way to her new home. Next evening, toward the second watch, Lu Pu wrapped up his daughter in soft wadded garments, bound her about with a mailed coat, and took her on his back. Then, with his mighty halberd in hand, he mounted his steed and rode at the head of the cavalcade out of the city gate. The 2 captains followed. In this order they approached Yuan Tair's camp. The drums at once beat the alarm, and the 2 younger brothers barred the way. "Stop!" they shouted. Lu Pu had no desire to fight. All he wished was to get through, so he made for a side road. Yuan came in pursuit and the two parties engaged. Brave as he might be, Lu Pu was almost helpless now that he was hampered by a girl on his shoulders, whom he was desperately anxious to preserve from hurt. Beside other parties came up all shouting and attacking, and he had no alternative but to give up his project and return into the city. He reached his palace very sad at heart. The besiegers returned to camp, well pleased that no one had got beyond their lines. Lu Pu found consolation in the wine cup. The siege had gone on for 2 months and still the city stood, when they heard that Chang Yang, prefect of Honai, had been inclined to come to the help of Lu Pu. But one of his subordinates had assassinated him and was bringing his head as an offering to TsʻAo, when he also had been slain by one of the prefect's friends. He had then gone to Takyong. In the camp of the besiegers there now arose much murmuring. The officers grumbled, saying, "Though Chang Yang, who meant to hurt us, is happily no more, yet we are threatened on the north by Yuan Shao, and on the east HsiapʻEi is a menace. Here we meet with no success against the city. We are for leaving Lu Pu to his fate and returning home. We need a rest." Among them, HsiapʻEi fought against this discontent. "You must not act like this," said he. "Lu Pu has lost much and his spirit is broken. The spirit of the leader expresses that of his men, and when the leader fails his men do not fight. HsiapʻEi is clever but nothing is done. Lu Pu broken, HsiapʻEi without decision. It only needs a sharp attack and we shall succeed." "I have a plan to propose," said Kuo-Chia, "a plan to overcome the city at once. It beats 20 legions." "I suppose you mean drowning the city," said HsiapʻEi. "That is it," said the proposer, smiling. TsʻAo accepted the suggestion with joy and set his men to cut the banks of the I and Su rivers, and moved his men to the high ground whence they watched the drowning out of HsiapʻEi. Only the east gate remained clear of water. The besieged soldiers hastened to their leader. He said, "Why should I fear? My good horse can go as well through the water as over the land." And he again returned to the wine cup for consolation, drinking deeply with his wife and concubine. The continual drinking bouts told at last, and Lu Pu began to look dissipated. Seeing himself in a mirror one day, he was startled at the change and said to himself, "I am injuring myself with wine, no more from this day forward." He then issued an order that no one should drink wine under penalty of death. Now one of his captains, who HsiapʻEi, lost 15 horses, stolen by one TsʻAo, who intended them for Yuan. The owner found out where they were, went out after them and recovered them, and his colleagues congratulated him on his success. To celebrate the occasion, he brewed a few cattas of wine to be drunk at the feast. But thinking his chief might find him in fault, he sent the bottles of wine to his palace, with a petition, explaining that by virtue of his lord's warlike renown, he had recovered his horses, and asking that he and his comrades might be allowed a little wine at their feast. Lu Pu took it very angrily, saying, "When I have forbidden all wine, you brew some and begin to give feasts. You are simply defying me." Whereupon he ordered the officer to instant execution. However, a number of his colleagues came in and interceded, and after a time Lu Pu softened. "You ought to lose your head for this disobedience, but for the sake of your colleagues, the punishment shall be reduced to 100 strokes. They tried to beg him off this, but only succeeded in reducing the number of blows to 1/2. When the sentence had been carried out, and the offender was permitted to return home, his colleagues came sadly to console him. "Had it not been for you, I should have been put to death," said HsiapʻEi. Sung Hsin replied, "All he cares for is his family. There is no pity for anyone else. We are no more than the weeds by the roadside." Hsu said, "The city is besieged, the water is drowning us out. There will not be much more of this, for we may die any day." He is a beast with neither a sense of humanity nor of right. Let us leave him, said HsiapʻEi. He is not worth fighting for. The best we could do would be to seize him and hand him over to TsʻAo. I was punished because I got my horses back again, yet all he trusts in is his own steed. If you two will betray the gate and seize Lu Pu, I will steal the horse and go out to TsʻAo's camp. They settled how to carry out the plot, and that very night HsiapʻEi sneaked into the stables and got the hare away. He hastened to the east gate, which was open, to let him through. The guard made a pretense of pursuing him, but only a pretense. HsiapʻEi reached the besiegers' camp, presented the horse, and told TsʻAo what had been arranged. They would show a white flag and open the gates to his army. Hearing this, TsʻAo had a few notifications written out, which were attached to arrows and shot over the walls. This is one of them. The General TsʻAo has received a command to destroy Lu Pu. Those who interfere with the operations of his grand army, whatever their rank, shall be put to death in the gate on the day that the city shall be captured. Should anyone capture Lu Pu or bring his head, he shall be well rewarded. Let all take note of this. Next day at daylight, a tremendous hubbub was heard without the city, and Lu Pu, halberd in hand, hasted to the wall to see what it meant. As he went from gate to gate inspecting the defenses and guards, he censured Yhsu for letting HsiapʻEi escape and get away with his horse. He threatened to punish him. But just then the besiegers began a fierce attack as the white flag had just appeared, and Lu Pu had to turn all his energies to defense. The assault lasted till noon, when the attacking force drew off for a time. Lu Pu was taking a rest in the tower and fell asleep in his chair. Son HsiapʻEi sent away his attendants, and when they had gone he stole his master's weapon, the halberd in which he trusted. Then he and Yhsu fell upon Lu together, and before he was well awake had bound him with cords, trussing him so that he could not move. Lu Pu shouted for his men, but they were driven off by the two traitors and could not come near. Then a white flag was shown, and the besiegers again approached the city. The traitors shouted out that Lu Pu was a prisoner. But HsiapʻEi could hardly believe it till they threw down the famous halberd. The gates were flung open and the enemy entered the city. Cao Shun and Chang Liao, who were at the opposite gate, were surrounded and cut off by the water and helpless. They were captured. Kung made a dash to the south gate but was also taken. Presently TsʻAo entered, and at once gave orders to turn the streams back into their usual courses. He put out proclamations soothing the people. He and Liu Pei seated themselves side by side in the White Gate Tower, with Kuan Yu and Chang Fei in attendance. The captives, to the number of 1,000, were brought before them. Lu Pu looked a pitiable object. Although a very tall man, he was tied up in a veritable ball. "The bonds are very tight," cried he. "I beseech you to loosen them." "A bound tiger frets, of course," replied TsʻAo. Seeing the three traitors standing there looking pleased at their success, Pu said, "I treated you all well enough. How could you turn against me?" Said Sung HsiapʻEi, "You listened to the words of your women but rejected the advice of your captains. Was not that mean?" Lu Pu was silent. Then Cao Shun was brought forward. "What have you to say?" asked TsʻAo. Shun sulkily held his tongue and was ordered out to execution. Next Kung was led in. "I hope you have been well since we last saw each other, Kung Tai," said TsʻAo. "Your ways were crooked and so I left you," said Kung. "You say I was crooked, and what of your serving Lu Pu? Though he was a fool, he did not resemble you in deceit and wickedness. You say you are able enough and clever, but what about your position today?" Turning toward Lu Pu, Kung said, "This man would not follow my advice. Had he done so, he would not now be a captive. What think you ought to be done about this day's work?" said TsʻAo. "There is death for me today, and that is the end," shouted HsiapʻEi. "Very well for you, but what of your mother and your wife? It is said that he who rules with due regard to filial piety does not harm a man's family. He who would show benevolence does not cut off the sacrifices at a man's tomb. My mother and my wife are in your hands. But since I am your prisoner, I pray you to slay me quickly and not to try to harrow my feelings." TsʻAo's heart still leaned toward mercy, but HsiapʻEi turned and walked away, repulsing the attendants who would stop him. TsʻAo rose from his place and walked with him, the tears falling from his eyes. HsiapʻEi never looked at him. Turning to his men, TsʻAo said, "Let his mother and family be taken to HsiapʻEi and looked after. This insolent fellow must die." The condemned man heard him but uttered no word. He stretched out his neck for the blow. Tears sprang to the eyes of all present. His remains were honorably coffined and buried in HsiapʻEi. A poem pitying his fate says, "Neither hope of life nor fear of death moved him. How brave was he, a hero indeed! But his lord heeded not his words, wherefore in vain possessed he great talents. Nevertheless, in that he stood by his master, to parting with wife and mother, he merits our pity and profound respect. Who would not resemble Kung Ti that day, he died at the White Gate." While TsʻAo sadly escorted HsiapʻEi on the way to death, Luo Pu appealed to Yuan-Ter. "Noble sir, you sit there an honored guest while poor I lie bound at your feet. Will you not utter one word to alleviate my lot?" Yuan-Ter nodded. As TsʻAo returned to his place, his prisoner called out, "Your only trouble, illustrious sir, is myself, and I am on your side now. You take the lead, I will help you, and together the world is at our feet." "What do you think?" said TsʻAo, turning to Liu Pei. "You are willing to forget the episodes of Ting Yuan and Tung Chou. Truly the lout is not to be trusted," said Luo Pu, looking at Yuan-Ter. "Strangle and expose," said TsʻAo. As he was led away, the prisoner turned once more to Yuan-Ter. "You long-eared lout, you forget now the service I rendered you that day at my Yammern gate, when my arrow hit the mark." Just then someone shouted, "Luo Pu, O fool! Death is but death, and why are you scared at it?" Everyone turned to look. The lictors were hustling Chang Liao to the place of judgment. A poet has written upon the death of Luo Pu. "The flood spreads wide, the city drowns, its lord is captive. Naught avails his courser's speed or halberd's thrust. The tiger erstwhile fierce, now whines for mercy." TsʻAo had meted him full well, a falcon flown at will and hungry kept. Poor fool! He let HsiapʻEi's advice be overborne by harem tattle. Vainly now he rails against the long-eared childa. And another poem says, "Bound is the hungry tiger, eater of men, for whom is no pity, since the blood of his victims is fresh and not yet dry." Yuan-Ter spoke no word in favor of Luo Pu, to whom even a father's life was not sacred. How could he save him to be a menace to TsʻAo man? It was recorded earlier that the executioners were hustling Chang Liao forward. Pointing to him as he stood there, TsʻAo said, "He has a fine face." "You were not likely to forget me. You saw me before in Pyongyang," said Liao. "Oh, so you remember me, eh?" "Yes, more's the pity." "Pity for what?" "That the fire that day was not fierce enough to burn you up, rebel that you are." TsʻAo began to get angry. "How dare you insult me?" cried he, and lifted his sword to kill the bold speaker. The undaunted Chang Liao never changed color, but stretched out his neck for the blow. Then a man behind TsʻAo caught his arm, and in front of him another dropped on his knees, saying, "O minister, I pray thee stay thy hand." Luo Pu whining was not spared. Railing Chang far better fared. Who was it that saved Chang Liao? The next chapter will show.